Hi Lou, how are you?
Hi Dave, I'm fine, thank you.
Good, good. Will you just introduce yourself for us?
I will. So I'm Lou Sherratt and I'm the Programme Lead for the BSc Adult Nursing Programme.
Brilliant. Can you let us know a little bit about your career from sort of start to finish, or start to now?
So I commenced my nurse training in 1993 at what was Mid-Trent School of Nursing that became the University of Nottingham in my final year. I then gained my first qualified nurse post in 1996 when I qualified on E16, which is a vascular surgical ward at Queen's Medical Centre, where I stayed for a vast number of years, including looking after your very good self as a newly qualified wee lad. I went over to Gynae at Derby City, followed by the brand new step-down high dependency unit at what was the DRI that is no longer. But my heart went back to vascular, where I returned to become a practice development nurse, which was where I stayed until 2003, when I had my lovely son, who is now a 16-year-old Neanderthal man. And whilst on maternity leave, I applied for a post as a clinical facilitator, a brand new education role back at the DRI on a diabetes medical ward, very different to what I'd done before. And that for me was when the education bug bit, and then was urged to apply for a post at the University of Derby, which was originally a 2-year fixed-term lecturer post, which I did and was successful, and well, 12 years later I am still there.
Brilliant. Can you tell us about a patient or a clinical story that sort of stuck with you?
Oh, I have far too many to mention, obviously having been around for all these years. Good one that will always stay with me was caring for a patient called Harry, I won't mention his surname, who was a bilateral amputee who had a cardiac arrest. We were successfully able to resuscitate Harry. He survived, he was discharged. Sadly, he passed away a couple of years ago, but up until that point, he actually lived near my mum. So I used to see him riding his bike with his prosthetics down the canal in Long Eaton. I would always pull over him for him to come over and say, "Hello, my angel." He will always stay in my heart. Yeah.
Okay, so what challenges did you find most difficult and how did you overcome them?
I think as a newly qualified nurse, because I was one of the very last Project 2000 student nurses, so the Project 2000 course was very much academic. There was very little clinical skills, there was very little ward experience, and obviously when you then start as a newly qualified nurse, and I hadn't been on E16 before as a student at all, it was very hard making that transition from student to newly qualified nurse when you didn't actually feel fully competent, because you hadn't had the clinical skills development, you hadn't had the ward experience. It was very, very difficult, and I certainly remember going home and crying every single day for 3 months. I never cried on ward, and it took me about 9 months into that post to actually think, I do know what I'm doing. And I think that's why for me, I always put myself back in the shoes of a student or a newly qualified nurse, because I remember it so well. And at that point you were given the keys and off you went. You know, there wasn't preceptorship to the level that there is now. There certainly wasn't the high level of support, and that ward was a very well established ward with people who were very, very competent. Luckily I did become one of those members of the team, but certainly that initial 9 months was very, very challenging, and I'm very open about that when students do ask me about it.
And was there anyone that in particular that helped you during that period?
I think the ward sister. Again, she will always have a special place in my heart, rest her soul. She was a very fierce woman, but she had our backs, and she genuinely cared, and she genuinely supported.
Okay, so if you weren't a nurse, what would you be doing?
I'd have been an air hostess. However, the reason I didn't become an air hostess was because I realised you had to wear makeup and heels, neither of which I do remarkably well. I can't walk in heels. You've been to balls with me. I don't do heels. So that's why I scrapped that idea.
Okay, so what pets have you got?
So we have a very fat cat called Joe, and obviously I have my 2 beloved girlies who happen to be horses. So Dolly, God bless her, is our little retired pony. She's 24 years old, acts like she's 2. And then I've obviously got Bonnie, who I've had for just over 18 months now, having lost my beautiful horse I'd had for a very long time. They are my passion. I'm obviously not riding at the moment for fear of falling off and ended up in hospital, and that's quite hard because the horses are my therapy, but I'm still able to do plenty of groundwork with them, pamper them, love them. It's just I'm not actually getting on their backs at the minute.
So what's your guilty pleasure?
Percy Pigs. Preferably mixed with Prosecco, but if I haven't got any Prosecco, gin is a very close second.
Okay, and if you could meet anyone, who would it be?
It would be my Fred Syriacs. I've loved the last few Thursdays watching him on the road trip with Gino and Gordon, most of the times because he's had very limited clothing on.
It's been really good talking to you, and hopefully the students will know you a bit better than they did before.
I'll probably get the sack because they'll see a very different side to their programme lead than the professional one they see most days. I am human too.
Brilliant. It's been great talking to you. See you soon.
And you, my darling.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.